Good morning from Oklahoma. I'm Dave Deken with a look at what's happening in agriculture and rural life across our great state in this episode of Red Dirt and Round Bales. Some crops just fit a place. They don't need perfect weather. They don't need the richest ground. They just need enough moisture, decent timing, and most importantly, a producer who knows how to read the seasons. Say hello to sorghum in Oklahoma. It can make grain, it can make silage, and for livestock producers, forage sorghum can help put hay in the yard when the summer gets hard. Now, sorghum has been worth watching over the past few years because in 2025, Oklahoma planted 440,000 acres of sorghum, with grain sorghum producing about 23.5 million bushels and silage adding 231,000 tons. Now for 2026, USDA is expecting Oklahoma sorghum acres to be up to 540,000 acres. So this really isn't just a side crop. Not here. But even a tough crop still has to be managed right. That's especially true with forage sorghum, where producers are trying to balance two things at once: getting enough tonnage to make a crop pay, and keeping that hay safe and useful for cattle. And one of the big questions is nitrogen. How much does a crop need? When should it go on? And after that first cutting, do you come back with more nitrogen or just back off because you're worried about nitrates? At last year's Sorghum Oklahoma Experience, Dr. Steve Phillips with Oklahoma State University talked about research on nitrogen timing in forage sorghum, hay yield, forage quality, and nitrate levels. And what makes this most useful is that it starts with a real producer question. Can we grow more forage without creating trouble inside the bale? Here's Dr. Phillips.
We've done some research where we're looking at different rates and timings of nitrogen on forage sorghum for hay production. We have a lot of growers that are a little hesitant, especially after the first cutting, to come with too much nitrogen, with a concern with nitrate concentrations in the hay. If we get up above 4,000 parts per million, we start to watch that a little closely. And so that was another thing that we wanted to make sure that we investigated in this research, was make sure that we got the maximum forage production we can get using the split nitrogen applications, but maintain a minimum standard of quality that we're looking for in our hay without exceeding that toxic nitrate level. And what we found in north central Oklahoma, on a silt loam around Stillwater and then on a sandy loam down around Perkins, is that we could continue to see yield increases all the way up to 200 pounds of nitrogen applied per acre. Now, ordinarily, when we do a nitrogen rate study, we like to go ahead and push that on over the top. And the fact that we continued to produce yields, and these yield levels are 13 tons, I think, was our top yielding. We ranged from about 9 at 100 pounds up to about 13 with 200 pounds. And so we need to get a little better feel for what we're doing in terms of pounds of nitrogen per ton of production. And so there's still a little bit of work there left to do, because what we're finding is a little more efficient use of the nitrogen than what we currently have in our recommendations. For example, we would recommend about 240 pounds of N for 10 tons of forage, where we made 13 with 200. So again, this split application may be a way for us to go.
So that's the production side of the story. How much forage can you really grow? And whether timing that nitrogen differently might make the crop more efficient. But hay is not just measured in tons. Somebody has to feed it. Dr. Phillips turns to the quality side: protein, TDN, and the nitrate concerns that make a lot of producers cautious with forage sorghum.
No differences really due to nitrogen rate, which was a little interesting. Usually we see the protein tend to follow a little bit, but in this case, we were around 7-8% protein and about 60% TDN, so a good quality hay that we're making. Nitrates never exceeded 3,000 parts per million. So we were in a level, even at 200 pounds of nitrogen, where we wouldn't be concerned. Now, it's important to remember that nitrate toxicity is very environmentally dependent. So as we see these plants begin to get stressed, we get surges in growth, erratic rainfall patterns, which are quite typical for the parts of the state where we're growing this crop. That's really what drives that accumulation of nitrate in the plant. It's not necessarily the amount of nitrogen, it's the plant uptake and metabolism of the nitrogen.
And that right there is the value of field research from a land-grant university. It doesn't just say, use more fertilizer. It can ask the better question, when does the crop need it? And what does that do to the hay? Because in Oklahoma, the weather can change the rules really fast. We all know sorghum is a tough crop, but even tough crops reward careful hands. To learn more about sorghum, Oklahoma, and to see videos from last year, visit reddirtandroundbales.com. I'm Dave Deken, and we'll talk with you next time when we take another look at rural life and agriculture in Oklahoma on Red Dirt and Round Bales.